Imagine this. Your HOA slaps a notice on your gate at sunrise that basically says, "Your family's livelihood. Nope. Not in our neighborhood." What would you do if the people who preach community standards tried to bulldoze your entire way of life, your history, just to flip a profit? Would you fold or fight? I didn't fold. I thought about it. Lord knows I did, but I didn't. Name's Matt Lawson. I used to bill hours in a glass tower and eat dinners that came in tiny architectural towers of microgreens. Then, life spun me like a cheap lawn chair in a hurricane. Divorce. Career nosedive. Silence where friends used to be. One thing left standing, the Lawson place in Solstice Valley. 40 acres of vines my granddad planted back, when folks still patched fences with conversation. When I came home, the valley still smelled like morning cold dirt. Lilac edges. The sweet copper of dew. It was quieter, too. Except for the brand new subdivision that sprouted along our eastern fence line, like copy-paste houses in shades of beige and more beige. They called it Solstice Heights. They brought mailboxes that matched and rules that multiplied like rabbits. And they brought Karen. Karen blonde, helmet hair, white SUV, sunglasses that cost more than my first guitar. President of the HOA. She smiled at you like you were a rumor she planned to correct. Her husband, Brent, built the development. And together, they treated standards like a holy text. The first time she walked my drive, heels ticking like a kitchen timer, she told me the word agricultural sounded hostile. I told her hostile sounded like agricultural with better shoes. That was, not the truce. She was hunting. It started with a fence, because it always starts with something small you can point at. My deer fence had been drooping for years. I ordered new posts, stretched wire, added a cedar gate that smelled like memory. 2 holes in, Karen appeared at the property line with a clipboard, fat as a church Bible. Unauthorized structure, she sang, like a middle school choir solo. Violates community aesthetics. I nodded at the Vineyard. Ma'am, that's not a community pool. That is fruit. Deer like fruit. She looked out over the vines, the way folks look at mud on a carpet. This is a residential neighborhood. No, I said, and I couldn't help the smile. This is a farm. Your neighborhood is a guest. 2 days later, a certified letter thunked into my mailbox, cease and desist. Daily fines. Threats about liens and court. She copied the county, the paper, and cute, move my bank. The letter used a lot of words to say, "We don't want your kind of life next door." Here's the part she didn't know before my life fell apart. I practiced real estate law for 15 years. She wasn't pushing a farmer. She was waking a lawyer who'd lost everything except a good pair of boots and a mean memory for covenants and clauses. I brewed coffee like courage. Popped open Granddad's steel filing cabinet and dug into a paper cave. Handwritten notes. Maps with muddy fingerprints. Deeds yellowed to the color of sweet tea. Then boom, there it was, 1962. Recorded. Witnessed. Notarized. Perpetual agricultural rights. Including fencing, equipment, seasonal labor housing, and direct-to-consumer events. Not a suggestion. A right. Black and white with teeth. I mailed polite copies to everyone in Karen's CC parade, and taped one to my fridge like a magnetized victory flag. Inspector Rodriguez showed up with a thermos, a measuring wheel, and the kind of calm you earn by ignoring drama. He walked the fence, peeked in the barn, and admired Granddad's antique crusher like it was a friendly dinosaur. "You're protected," he said, pen scratching. "Whoever filed the complaint didn't read the county code. Or your deed." He slid on sunglasses. "My bet, they ain't gonna like the part where you can host events." That night, I sat on the porch and listened to the Vineyard exhale. The breeze smelled like green apples and sawdust. Barley. My old lab slept snoring against my boot. I thought, maybe it's over. Then, the Facebook group launched, Concerned Neighbors of Solstice Valley. First post a zoomed, tilted photo of my tractor. Captioned, "Is this safe around our children?" Second post, "Anyone else notice delivery trucks speeding?" Third, "We're not anti-farm. We just want rules applied equally." My favorite, "Jew stay, SKNGQUSTIONs. You know how lies travel faster than the truth. Lighter than facts. Sticky as syrup. People I'd known at the feed store started glancing away. My farmer's market booth usually chatter, and samples went quiet like a church after a sermon nobody liked. I kept working. Fixed irrigation. Repaired trellis lines. In the evenings, I read every soul-numbing HOA document I could get my hands on and underlined it into a neon rainbow. I also noticed something hidden in the margins, Brent. The developer had proposals pending for 2 more phases. To build those, he needed my road widened, my ditch relocated, and my easement clarified. Funny word. Clarified. When what you mean is erased. Jake Carter is the only person I know who wears a suit like a basketball jersey comfortable. Born for it. We met in law school. Back when we still believed coffee solved everything. Jake went environmental law. I went real estate. People say we picked opposite teams. We always figured we were playing the same game from different sidelines. I called him. "You free to take a stroll through the valley?" He drove up the next day, rolled his sleeves, and walked rows with me until our socks were dusty and our cheeks were sunburnt. "Classic squeeze," he said finally, squinting at the subdivision. "HOA is the velvet glove. Developer is the iron fist. Think we can win?" He grinned. "Buddy, you already have more leverage than a tractor jack. You got the deed. Let's find everything else." We built a plan. Step 1, public records. Step 2, science. Step 3, neighbors. Step 4, patience. Which DR Raider, Ian find out, ain't exactly my superpower. But I was learning. At the courthouse basement, Ethel guarded the microfilm like a dragon guards gold. She had a stapler, a cardigan, and a side-eye that could curdle milk. "Baby," she said, "what are you hunting?" "Everything," I said, and meant it. Hours later, dust in my lungs and hope in my throat, I found a state designation from 1987, Historic Agricultural District. It built a legal bubble around every existing farm, stronger than HOA covenants, stronger than county shortcuts. Any new development near us required impact studies, water, traffic, wildlife, soil. My fingers shook a little. I made copies like a man copying a map out of a burning library. Back home, the HOA moved from snark to siege. Certified letters bloomed like mold. Noise complaints at dawn. Random fire inspections called in for my busiest Saturdays. Anonymous tips to the health department, claiming I used illegal pesticides because a neighbor saw me carry a bag of lime. Someone left a pile of dead fish by my gate with a note that said, "Smells like justice. Cute. Real cute." Nora Hayes arrived, wearing mud-friendly boots and carrying a field kit that looked like a sci-fi lunchbox. Soil scientist. Sharp mind. Soft laugh. Zero patience for nonsense. I brought test strips, a probe, and a terrible playlist. She said, "We'll look for septic leaks, runoff patterns, and if you're unlucky, glyphosate residue downhill from their turf palaces." Turf palaces. You know their lawns. People love grass that looks like a golf course and treats water like a rumor. She winked. "Let's go find their mess." We found it. Nitrates surfacing where they shouldn't. A wet line in soil that should have been dry. Storm drains packed with grass clippings that should have been compost. Nora set markers, jotted GPS points, and muttered, "HOA rules wasn't even written for this." Then laughed at herself. "Sorry, wasn't clear for this. You know what I mean." While she tested, I walked easements. People forget, a deed is a map written in ink that never really dries. I traced utility rights of way like veins under skin. Measured setbacks that encroached. And found, tucked in the chain of title, a construction easement Granddad granted but never deeded away. 50 feet. That 50 feet ran behind 3 Solstice Heights lots and surprised straight through the HOA's tot lot. I didn't gloat. Okay. I gloat-smiled for about 12 seconds. Then I called Jake. "Buddy," he said, "you're holding the lever that moves their world." Karen tried honey, knocked on my door with a basket of muffins and a smile like fresh paint. "Let's be neighbors," she said. Voice sugared. "We'd love to host a farm appreciation night if you could commit to limiting tractor noise. No weekend events. And oh no, the livery's past. Say, 5 in the evening." So, an appreciation night where the price of admission is, I stop being a farm. "That's not fair," she said. Lips thinning. "We just want harmony." "Harmony is rules that apply to you, too," I said. "The law's not a buffet." She blinked. "We have attorneys." "Me too." I paused. "And sorry experience." The muffins were good. I shared them with the crew. We joked about gluten-free bribery and got back to work. The next letter wasn't muffins. It was a cease and desist, thick as a novella. From a downtown firm with a lobby that probably smells like eucalyptus and ambition. They gave me 72 hours to shut down all commercial operations. 12 alleged violations: traffic, dust, noise, aesthetic disharmony, unapproved lighting, improper signage, attraction of insects. They CC'd the county, the bank, the paper, and, weirdly, the PTA. Jake read it and snorted. "Public nuisance. Cute. They forgot your statutory protections. Misread your deed. And pretended their rules outrank state law. It's like watching somebody bring a butter knife to a thunderstorm." "Still, it rattles the bones," I said. "That's the point," he said. Softer. They want you scared. So you act small. Don't. We decided to stop being reactive. Father Miguel, a priest who could organize a tornado if he needed, to open the parish hall for a meeting. Word spread through back doors and whispered phone calls. Farmers in faded caps. Teachers with spiral notebooks. Retirees who remembered the valley before Starbucks. We filled the room with the hush of people who are tired of fines for flower boxes. Tired of anonymous complaints that always smell like the same perfume. Tired of being told that the way they live is non-compliant. Miguel spoke first. Community, he said. Ain't a word you print on a pamphlet. It's a promise you keep when nobody's watching. Then, Nora showed maps colors creeping across the valley, where water should be clean and wasn't. Jake explained, in plain words, what historic agricultural district meant. I talked deeds and easements. Tried to keep it neighbor simple. If it ain't written, it didn't happen. If it is written, it matters. A woman in the back, Miss Patterson, stood up, hands shaking. They fined me for my swing set, 'cause the slide was blue instead of tan. She said. Said it wasn't aesthetically cohesive. I cried in my laundry room like a child. Ain't that something? There's a kind of silence that isn't empty. It's heavy with understanding. We had that silence. Then, we had resolve. We formed the Valley Farmers Alliance that night. A WhatsApp group, dinged to life. We shared a folder of templates, public records requests, complaint logs, motion drafts. We wrote down every weird little thing, license plates of cars that slow rolled past, dates of anonymous calls, times the HOA randomly patrolled only the farm roads. You'd be amazed what a timeline looks like once the lights are on. Sabotage feels like betrayal you can step in. One dawn, I found the irrigation cut clean as a white shirt, sending a sheet of water through a block of Pinot like a flash flood of bad luck. I killed the pump, cursed into my sleeve, and stood knee-deep in mud that smelled like ruined Saturdays. Karen posted before I'd finished repairs, so sad to see water wasted during drought conditions. Some people don't respect the environment. She added a prayer hands emoji that made my teeth itch. Nora sampled the flow. Knife cut, she said, pointing with a gloved finger. Not where. Not animal. She lifted her phone, timestamped that post of hers. Will you? Weddings started canceling. The brides cried. The grooms got careful voiced. Each had gotten a call from a friend who'd heard about contamination and federal investigations. I refunded deposits, sat with my staff, and said the words business owners dread, we're gonna tighten until harvest. They nodded. We ordered cheaper coffee and made bad jokes taste like courage. I bought trail cams. We put them in fence posts, in birdhouses, in a fake rock that looked like a real rock if you were, you know, not a geologist. The footage, 2 weeks later, showed a teenager in a hoodie, hired by a man with a rental car. The teen confessed to a deputy with a gaze like a winter pond. The rental connected to a subcontractor who, when squeezed, coughed up Brent's project manager. It didn't touch Brent yet, but the line was curling toward him like a fuse. Jake called a friend at the U.S. Attorney's office. She listened, asked mean questions, then said, "Get me patterns. Patterns make cases." We got to work drawing constellations. The HOA called an emergency safety forum, which translation meant a rally with prettier fonts. Karen clicked a slideshow of community values and aesthetic harmony, while Brent leaned in a doorway pretending to be bored. Several people took notes like it was gospel. Several rolled their eyes like they'd heard it all before. Karen smiled at Dagger. "We all appreciate legacy, Matthew," she said, drawing out the syllables like taffy. "But standards keep property values strong." "Standards without fairness," I said, "ain't standards. They're cudgels." A board member, Mike, the only one who ever looked me in the eye, cleared his throat. "Maybe we pause enforcement until council confers." The corner of Karen's mouth twitched. "Duly noted," she said, which sounded a lot like absolutely not. The letter with the fancy watermark arrived like a thunderhead. "Public nuisance," it announced. In bold, "Shut down within 72 hours. It demanded 12 allegations, several footnotes, and an appendix of photos shot through hedges like they'd hired a wildlife photographer with a grudge. I read it twice, laid it on the table, and stared at the ceiling. Barley put his chin on my knee. "I know, buddy," I whispered. "They're loud." Then I got petty, productive petty. I took a red pen and circled every misrepresentation. I wrote the code section they'd forgotten. I stapled copies of the 1987 designation. I printed the deed language in a type so big it could be read from space. I drafted a reply whose politeness clinked like a teacup and cut like a razor. Jake read it over my shoulder. "Chef's kiss," he said. "File it. Then, let's make a bigger move." "What's bigger?" He grinned. "Mediation. Public. Cameras. Sunshine is a disinfectant. Sorry, the disinfectant." We invited them to a community mediation at the town hall, with a retired judge we trusted. And some press. We sent the agenda, the documents, the cookies. We acted like people with nothing to hide, because we weren't hiding a thing. The afternoon of mediation. The air tasted like rain and story. People filled the hall, teachers clutching tote bags, farmhands with hat brim lines etched tan on their foreheads, HOA moms with identical water bottles. Miguel sat front row center, hands folded like prayer, with impatience braided into the fingers. Karen opened with a hymn to cohesion. She spoke about safety, resale value, uniform architecture, and neighborhood character. She used the word incompatible 3 times, each one like a pebble tossed at my windows. Brent put on his reluctant adult voice. "We're here to resolve tensions," he said. "We're willing to compensate Mr. Lawson fairly to transition his land into a more suitable use that benefits everyone." The room exhaled annoyance. I stood. "Here's the thing," I said, and caught myself adding, because it's hard to talk without your real voice sometimes. "Here's the thing. Farms ain't theme parks you visit till you get bored. Farms are work and memory. This one is protected by deed and by law. And this part matters. Your development failed to complete required impact studies." Nora rolled out maps, cool blues and angry reds. "Arrows like spilled threads. Their septic's leaking," she said. "Simple as a weather report. Their run-off's wrong. Wildlife got cut off from migration lanes older than any of us." Jake walked folks through the law like a good tour guide, no jargon. Just landmarks, state designation, he said. County code. Easements recorded here and here. Enforcement limits. Remedies available when rules are abused. The retired judge nodded, slow once. Twice. Then the doors opened at the back. Two folks in suits. One woman in a dark blazer with eyes that belonged on a hawk. She spoke to the judge, who spoke to the room. Agents from the U.S. Attorney's office have questions about certain patterns, he said. Brent's jaw did a small, interesting dance. Karen's lips whitened. Cameras clicked like crickets in August. Investigations are less law and order and more waiting in rooms painted government beige. But sometimes there's poetry, like when a subcontractor produces a folder labeled MISC, and it turns out to be evidence. Or when a group text leaks, and the chat name Project Quiet tells you more than depositions do. Patterns emerged, false reports timed to grant deadlines. Enforcement notices coordinated with bank reviews. Anonymous tips that weren't spoiler, they were Karen with a burner app. Sabotage paid in cash. A spreadsheet titled Risk Mitigation with a column Acquisition Pressure Tactics. An intern panicked and emailed us by accident. Bless that intern. May their coffee always be the right temperature. 3 HOA board members resigned. One wrote a letter that started, "I didn't sign up for this." The bank that had been suddenly concerned about my loan became suddenly cooperative. The county planning department scheduled an audit. A reporter with a spine like rebar started showing up everywhere. Brent offered me money again. More this time. $5 million, he said, across a table so shiny I could see my future in it. I already have enough, I said. Do you? I thought of breakfast burritos shared on tailgates. Of vines leafing out like 1,000 small green flags. Of Nora's laugh when I mispronounced Vertisol. Yeah, I said. Turns out, I do. He leaned in. You can't stop all of it. Maybe not, I said. But I can make it cost more than it's worth. Court is theater with rules. The judge wore patience like a heavy robe. The prosecutor laid out the timeline like a fence line post. Post. Post no gaps. Our side of the gallery smelled faintly like sawdust and coffee. Their side smelled faintly like cologne that costs more than tires. Witnesses spoke. The teen who cut the line apologized to my crew and to his mama in the same breath. Miss Patterson cried on the stand. Then wiped her eyes and delivered steel. Nora explained nitrates to 12 people who never thought they'd care. Picture your soil, she said. Like a sponge. Now imagine pouring chemicals where water should be. Jake objected when the defense tried to turn heritage designation into a suggestion. The judge sustained. I didn't pump my fist. But inside, I maybe danced. Emails landed like hailstones. We need Lawson gone by, end of quarter. Use HOA. Cheaper. Keep it safety focused. Texts that said, make the farm look messy this weekend. And call code guy, same script as last time. The jury didn't like those. Their faces tightened into that look people get when someone lies to their grandma. Verdict. Guilty. On enough counts to make Brent a cautionary tale. Karen took a deal for her role in the harassment. Social media shenanigans. And falsified filings. She gave a statement about overzealous enforcement. That was 90% excuse and 10% regret. It wasn't my job to measure her heart. It, Brady, was my job to let it go. The judge said, Property rights protect all of us only when enforced without favoritism. And I wrote that sentence down like a prayer. After the verdict, the valley exhaled. You could hear it in the way the hardware store bell sounded less tired, in the way the barista didn't flinch when HOA folks walked in beside farmhands, in the way kids ran through the farmer's market like joy had been given permission again. We took part of the settlement and built the Solstice Heritage Foundation, scholarships, soil workshops, a legal defense fund for anyone slapped with nonsense fines. Miguel held a blessing under the old oak at the crossroads, the one with the heart-shaped knot in its trunk. He said, "May we remember that the land feeds us only if we feed it back." And everybody murmured, "Amen," in 12 different kinds of belief. We rebranded the label Justice Row. It tasted like red fruit and second chances. The first release sold out because, I suspect, folks wanted to drink victory like it was a vintage. Barley got older and grayer around the muzzle. We adopted Grace, a shepherd mix with opinions. Nora moved her microscopes into the old tack room and hung pressed wildflowers above the bench. I started sleeping through the night again. But calls started arriving from everywhere: Oregon, Texas, North Carolina, Vermont. Our HOA fined us for a wheelchair ramp. They banned backyard gardens. How is that even legal? Developer sits on the board. Sudden rule changes target our little farm stand. Different places. Same weather pattern. We started sharing our playbook. Not legal advice, just lived advice. Learn your deed. Record everything. Ask for everything in writing. If they say safety, ask for data. If they say aesthetics, ask for criteria. Sunshine. 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 Summer rolled in with peaches and forgiveness. One evening, pastel light spilled across the rows and turned the dust into glitter. We hosted a community supper, long tables, paper plates, laughter that sounded like repair. Someone brought a fiddle, someone else brought pie. Somebody's toddler tried to hug Grace, who tolerated it like a saint. Karen showed up. She stood at the edge of the crowd, hair pulled back, hands empty. People noticed, because of course they did. There was a quick shiver through the gathering, the human kind, the oh boy kind. I walked over. My crew watched me like I was approaching a wildfire. "I wanted to say sorry," she said. The words seemed to surprise her on their way out. I was wrong. I thought, she swallowed. I thought uniformity meant goodness. I thought tidy meant right. And I listened to the wrong person for too long. I let her talk. Not because she deserved it. Maybe she did. Maybe she didn't. But because I needed to lay the thing down. "Okay," I said at last. "Thank you for saying it." She glanced at the tables. "Your valley looks happy." "It works hard at it," I said. She left without a plate. That felt correct. Forgiveness ain't dessert. It's homework. Here's the part where I tell you what I wish somebody had told me when the first letter hit my mailbox. 1. Make a binder. Not a digital folder, well, that too, but a binder you can thump on a table. Tabit deed. Easements. Easement maps. Zoning. Designations. Correspondence. Notices. Incident log. Photos. Videos. Witnesses. Dates in words. Not numbers. May 20th. Not 0. 5/20. Someday, a judge or An angel in a cardigan named Ethel will love you for this. 2. Learn your story. Not the HOA's version, yours. Who planted your first tree? Why the swing set is blue? When your dad poured the driveway, and how many weekends it took. Facts wrapped in story are harder to bulldoze. 3. When they say, everyone else complies, ask for the list. When they say, it's a rule, ask for the vote record and the bylaw citation. When they say anonymous complaint, ask for the procedure that prevents abuse. Bullies hate homework. 4. If you can, bring cookies. I'm not kidding. Hospitality isn't weakness. It's an ambush from the high ground. 5. There's people who will tell you to burn it all down. Don't. You're building a home, not a bonfire. Use the system until the system uses its own rules to spit out the bad actors. 6. Let your voice crack. Cry once if you need to. Then breathe. Document. And keep going. 7. Never, ever go alone. There's a Jake in your county, a Nora at your extension office, a Miguel at your church or community center, an Ethel guarding a filing cabinet like a dragon who likes you. Find them. Thank them. Buy them coffee. They'll save your life, and then ask for nothing but your time when it's the next person's turn. Autumn leaned in golden. We ran harvest on a schedule that felt like a drumline. One night, the press chattered like a happy machine, and the air was so thick with crushed fruit, it felt like you could swim through it. Volunteers stacked bins. The crew sang along to a classic rock station that faded in and out like a campfire story. A boy from Solstice Heights, freckles, braces. I'm not supposed to be here, hovered at the edge of the crush pad. You like grapes? I asked. He shrugged in a way that meant yeah. You can help rinse buckets, I said. But you tell your mom. Okay. He laughed. Made a mess. Learned what work feels like when it's shared. I sent him home with a bag of seconds and a story to tell his HOA. Later, under string lights that made everything look forgiven, Nora leaned against a barrel. You ever think about writing it down? She asked. This I waved at the night. Or the war. Both, she said. People forget fast. You should give them something to remember. I said I would. Then I procrastinated, because writing makes you meet yourself without excuses. But eventually, after the frost and before the bud break, I sat down and started. We got calls to speak at city councils, at county boards, at homeowner meetings where half the folks crossed their arms and the other half teared up. We learned to start with a hook, because attention is a skittish horse. What if your HOA fined you for a wheelchair ramp? What if they said your kid's lemonade stand violates aesthetics? What if a rule book became a weapon? We didn't say all HOAs are evil. Some keep the pool clean. Some keep the lights on. We said, power without accountability starts growing mold. We met good board members Mike, who now chairs a reformed board that actually reads its own bylaws, Denise, who created a hardship waiver so fixed-income seniors aren't fined into humiliation, Priya, who runs Ask the Board nights that are sometimes spicy but always honest. We also met new Karens, new Brents, folks who want sameness more than they want neighbors. We met them with documents, daylight, and, yeah, cookies. I ain't above weaponized hospitality. A state senator toured the valley, sniffed the air, which smelled like compost, and victory, and introduced a bill to tighten how HOAs coordinate with developers. People called it the Lawson Bill. I told them to call it the Everybody Bill. Winter in the valley is bones and breath. The vines look dead, but they're not. They're storing up, plotting their comeback. I love that about them, resurrection as a business model. On a December night, I stood with Miguel under a sky sharp enough to cut your heart open. He blew into his hands and said, "You know the real miracle. That I can still feel my toes." He laughed. "No. That you didn't become what they tried to make you, angry enough to scorch the field." I got close. I admitted. I was gonna salt the earth with sarcasm. And instead, I watered it with paperwork. He cackled. "You are a poet of petty." "Thanks," I said. "I think." We told stories till our noses hurt and our coffee turned to memory. When the first bud popped in spring, tiny, defiant, green as grace, I felt something inside me answer back, "Still here." "All right. Neighbor, your turn. Let me, end the way I began. What if your HOA decided your way of life doesn't fit? What if they fined you for your front yard tomatoes, your ramp, your shed, your solar panels, your flag, your mailbox, your literal grapevines? What if they said it's about standards, when really it's about control or somebody's payday?" Here's what you do. You learn your deed like a prayer. You write everything down in words, not numbers. You ask for receipts on every claim. You bake cookies and bring a camera. You gather your people. You make a binder. You keep your dignity. You refuse to be small. Then, when they realize you ain't alone, they will either change or they will lose. Either way, you win back your life. Now talk to me. What did your HOA pull? Did a board member tell you your house paint wasn't calm enough? Did they stalk your ring footage to count how many friends parked by your curb? Did they? God help 'em. Fine. Your kid for chalk art. Tell me where you're watching from, what happened, and what you tried. I'll read it. And I bet 1,000 neighbors will too. Because this isn't just my story. It's yours. It's ours. And when good people link arms, law, facts, cookies, the ending's always the same. The bully loses, and the rest of us, we go home, pour something honest, and get back to living.